Welcome in, everybody. Another edition of the Lazy Booking Podcast here on A2DRadio.com with an absolute legend and Hall of Famer. We're going to talk to him on the other side, so make sure you guys like, subscribe, follow, and let's get going.
Everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
Who's that kid? Nick. He looks like Beaker from Muppets.
The one on FS1, Nick Wright. Yep.
Yeah. I got something.
That's
for
amazing.
I
did not even. I love that.
If I get 5 women and they're all in the same room with me, we're going at it at 110%.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. This is the Lazy Booking Podcast live on A2DRadio.com. And we are happy to welcome in a very, very special guest today who is trending this week, by the way. We're happy to welcome in the most decorated tag team of all time. Us being a Philadelphia sports network here, a guy's an absolute legend around this area, and WWE Hall of Famer, Dudley of the Dudley Boys Team 3D. How are you today, Devon?
I'm good. How are you, my friend?
Doing great, and very excited to have you on as a guest today. We want to show a little bit of love to our sponsor here, Specialized Physical Therapy. You can find them in Burlington and Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You can find them on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Big week this week for you guys, Devon. You guys, big announcement that came on this Sunday. But A2D stands for Agree to Disagree Radio. We're very excited to have you on today. And usually we open up with an Agree to Disagree statement, and we like to get your opinion on it. So this week's Agree to Disagree statement brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy. Tag team wrestling is currently experiencing a revival. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
I mean, I agree. There's a lot of good tag teams in just about every federation you can watch, and that includes, AEW, TNA, WWE. I mean, it's really coming back to life again. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, it really does seem that that's the fact. I mean, you look at really across all platforms. I mean, even WWE, where I do feel like the era where you guys really revolutionized the tag team division for WWE. It did kind of feel like a fall off where you were seeing a lot of the tag team division being used to advance singles storylines, right? So seeing this revival and all these different tag teams, and then you look in AEW, when you look at, teams like FTR and Private Party and all these great, very dynamic, very different tag teams, it does kind of remind you of the era when, in the Attitude Era, when you had you guys, you had Edge and Christian, and you had the Hardy Boys and all those dynamic styles.
Well, again, I can't leave out NXT. I didn't mention NXT. NXT is doing extremely well as well. With all of these great tag teams in the different organizations, I think it's a shot in the arm. The Attitude Era was definitely an era for tag team wrestling. But all the Dudley Boys did was take a page out of yesterday's book and make it current during that time. We were a big fan of the Road Warriors. We were a big fan of the Hart Foundation, the British Bulldogs, the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, Doc and Gordy, Tully and On. The list goes on and on with great tag teams that we grew up watching. So, we were very happy to be able to take what we learned from watching and, of course, getting the advice from some of those greats when we did meet them and making it into our own, So it was a really good feeling during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see a lot of the influences across the board from all those great tag teams, not just in your work, but in the current teams today, taking from a lot of what you guys do. And it's always about upping the ante too, right? You see a lot of these.
Absolutely.
You guys innovated, really, the TLC, the tag team division and those, like, say, the tag team ladder matches. And now when you see these teams, I mean, you just watched TNA have an unbelievable tag team ladder match just this weekend on their Slammiversary pay-per-view. And it really does feel like you guys really You guys set such a high standard, and these teams just continue to try to innovate that style.
Well, when you're I say it like this: when you're the first to do it, to make history, and to do things that no one else has done, it'll never be forgotten. It'll always be considered the best. Now, some of these guys nowadays are doing things far more dangerous than we ever did back then. A lot more creative, to a certain degree, I'll say, and innovative. So, but because we did it at a time when you didn't never see anything like that before, it'll always be special in a lot of people's hearts. Even when some of the younger generation watches what we do today, I had somebody come up to me um, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, at a signing, and they pretty much said, he had to be about maybe 12, 14 years old. And he said, I love watching your stuff, and man, you guys were great, and this and that. I was like, wait a minute, you didn't go to those matches because you weren't even born then.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, I watch it on YouTube, watch it on Peacock, because they still, have those matches up. And we just got finished watching TLC match from WrestleMania 17. And my God, we just kept saying, my God, after everything. But, the great part about that is it wasn't what we did. It was how we did it. It was the storyline that was behind it. That's what made it special.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And particularly when you go back into the days of Extreme Championship Wrestling and then the Attitude Era, the storytelling was amazing. And you're talking like top to bottom, from the opening matches to the mid card to the tag team division to the main event. It was really a golden time for, storytelling in professional wrestling.
It really was. I mean, it was one of those things where, we were very lucky to be a part of an era that was ready to have that shot in the arm to, revive tag team wrestling. I mean, you had legendary teams like the Road Warriors that were trying to come back during that time a little bit, but it just didn't seem like it took off from where they did it in the 80s. And I think people were just ready for that new generation to come aboard and to try it. And, we were lucky because we did everything right. Imagine if we would have did everything wrong, you and I wouldn't be talking right now.
I know, it's crazy. And, you talk about like, it's interesting how the Dudleys came together, right? So obviously, if anybody's seen any of the interviews you guys have done for documentaries, you were trained by Johnny Rodgers, one of the legendary trainers in professional wrestling. And then on the flip side, Bubba Bully, he basically had to learn on the spot. And to see how when you guys came in and you feuded and then you came together, talk about what that time was like. You came in, you were sought after, and you came into ECW, and it was a very lively environment, a very interesting dynamic with that environment. What was that like for you to come into Extreme Championship Wrestling and really be a part of such a revolution in the business?
Well, I will say this. I was scared to death, I first came in, because I didn't know what to expect. I had never done this before. Um, in terms of on that level of ECW, my trainer, I had taken a break because I had personal issues. My trainer came and said, "Hey, welcome back to the train. Welcome back to start training. Are you ready to do this?" I said, "Absolutely." And he goes, "Yeah, I can see the way you are. You're in that ring, you're flipping and flying, you're doing everything." And that's when he came to me. He goes, "What do you think about ECW?" At that time, I was scared to death of ECW.
Yeah.
The tables being lit on fire with thumbtacks. I'm like, this is barbaric. This
Yeah.
this isn't what I'm used to. And he said, I trained Taz and Tommy Dreamer and Big Dick Dudley. I said, yes, I did. And he said, what do you think about going? I said, nah. I was like, yeah, I'll go. And even though I was scared to death and I wanted to say no, he basically made the phone call and it took off from there. So, I met Bubba at the ECW school. And although we're brothers, wink, wink, I met him there and then we took off. Everything really worked out great for us. in that aspect, and it just sparked from there.
Yeah, it really did, and it was an instant chemistry, even as rivals, and then to flip the script and Bubba to turn heel, which, I mean, Bubba became one of the, in my opinion, one of the greatest heels, maybe in the history of the business. He just was so unbelievable in that spot over the years and how he developed. But you guys had such an instant chemistry, and you guys really worked with a lot of really incredible tag teams. Then when you talk about the Eliminators, the Gangsters, yeah, the Public Enemy. Holy moly, there we go. It was just an amazing tag team division back then. And then obviously the story within the Dudley family, when you talk about Spike Dudley and how you guys were able to play off of that with Big Dick Dudley. What was it like to be surrounded by such a talented group of people who I think at the time were very underrated when you talk about John Cronus and Perry Saturn? And not a whole ton of eyes until Paul kind of came in and you guys all shook up the industry.
Well, Paul was the one that put everybody on the map in ECW. He really did. He made people take notice. Remember, at one point, nobody was looking at us. WCW, WWE. I'm not even sure if the AWA was around during that time. UWF. I mean, there was still, territories that you can go to and still make money, but nobody was looking at us. We were kind of like the degenerates of the wrestling world.
Yeah.
Nobody knew how to handle us or to make us. And Paul knew. Paul knew exactly how to do it. I will always be grateful to Paul. I will always owe him, so much gratitude because of my career. If it wasn't for Paul, we wouldn't have been here. Being in that locker room with so many guys who weren't even looked upon as anybody at that point in time, they still had knowledge. Shane Douglas, the Pit Bulls, the Eliminators, you just named them. I mean, the Gangsters, even though the Gangsters were violent and, weapons and all of that, I learned a lot from New Jack, and even when New Jack and I were feuding with each other, I had always said that. I had learned a lot from him. And I gave New Jack his respect because he really did help me in the business. So many guys back then, especially in ECW, they were willing to help. Now, if you came from WCW and went to ECW, there were stories about guys being in WWE or WCW at the time that were older, that were veterans, that didn't want to help the younger talent. But it was like they came to ECW, and it was like their whole mind just shifted and changed, and they were willing to help us to get us to where we needed to be. This is why we're successful now.
Yeah, 100%. And I remember, I'm in the Philadelphia area. I'm in South Jersey, and I can remember being that kid who was 11 and 12 years old, waking up and 2 a.m. and watching Channel 48 and catching, the ECW broadcast and just thinking like, seeing, the Dudley boys, and then turning around and seeing, the Sandman and Raven and Tommy Dreamer and Taz and Sabu, God rest his soul, and the BWO Blue Meanie and all those guys. It was just such a smorgasbord, and it is very true what you say, in that it did kind of feel like at that time you guys were like the renegades, where it was like, I don't want to say the land of the misfit toys, but it was just kind of like, people didn't know, is it real, is it not real, and what would it be like to step in the ring with these guys? Is that what you guys felt like on your side?
Yes. I mean, I think a little bit of everything. We were just so overwhelmed back then. The wrestling business was hot before it really became hot, before the Monday Night Wars and all of that. I mean, there was still a lot of places to go make money. And, the 80s generation was still around. They were still doing their thing. So it kept the business going. Sometimes you need the older generation to keep the new generations going and up, because sometimes the fans aren't willing to let it go. They're stuck in that era, and they're like, oh man, I remember back in the day when this team was good and that team was good. And it was like a lot of them didn't want to, give us, our flowers, but we had to go in there and take it. And, I hear that all the time at autograph signings when people say, oh man, the Attitude Era was the best time. I really don't watch wrestling right now. It's not like you guys were back then. And I go, yeah, I said, but you got to give these guys a chance. Remember, you guys did the same thing to us when we were coming up. You were so used to the British Bulldogs, the Hart Foundation, Demolition, the Road Warriors, Telly and on. You guys were so used to those guys, Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express. So when we came along, it was like, oh, who are these guys? We had to prove ourselves over and over again every single night. And I think that's what this generation is willing to do too.
Yeah, it does seem like they're working very, very hard, especially with tag team wrestling, trying to kind of recapture, the glory, and it has been. I mean, who thought you'd ever see a tag team match close out WrestleMania? But WrestleMania 39, right? You had the Usos versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and what would be an absolute classic. Before we move on to your time in WWE when you guys moved on, I do have to ask you about, you guys had so much heat on you. And I mean, we've all seen the clips. We've seen the heat that you guys could generate with the crowd. And you guys weren't afraid to get in their faces and get physical and challenge people to jump out of the crowd and come into the ring. I mean, that is some very old school, like when you look at NWA and the Horsemen jumping Dusty Rhodes in the cage and riots happening. So as the person on the inside of that, I have to know what that felt like. Was there, I mean, it seemed fearless, but I have to imagine there was, a little bit of uncertainty and fear. But what was it like to be able to generate that much heat and be in those arenas in New York and Boston and Philadelphia, some of the toughest areas?
We were young and dumb. We had no fear, no nothing. We didn't care. We didn't care about jumping in people's faces. We didn't think about somebody might have had a knife and tried to shank us from behind. We didn't know, because you heard horror stories from Bruiser Brody and Classy Freddie Blassie. Somebody throwing acid on him. Because all the heat that Classy Freddie Blassie had generated. We didn't care. We weren't even thinking about that. We knew the stories, but we just went in there blind, like most young people do.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Sorry. I froze for a second. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it was an incredible time. And really, if anybody really wants to go back, and I mean, again, I think of, Dusty getting jumped in the parking lot by the Horsemen, and then what you saw when they broke his leg. And I had never really seen anything like that. If you go back and watch videos, maybe like the Freebirds and the Von Erichs, a couple of little incidences with that. But the heat that you guys generated, it's legendary and it's unbelievable. And you can go back and watch, some of the Untold Story or the ECW documentary that they have on Peacock. I was going to say WWE Network. Lots of good stuff. But you guys get your opportunity. You get to come to WWE. I know there was a little bit of hesitation. You guys have talked about that before, where you had teams like the APA and a lot of really established teams at that time. But it was a division that was kind of reviving itself. You guys tell a fantastic story about getting jumped by the APA and worried about, getting your asses kicked because of Public Enemy and some of their decisions when they came to WWE. But I want to talk about when after that, right? So you guys, there was a backstage segment that you guys did, and the APA comes in and kicks your asses, right? And I know you guys have talked about how you got up and you thanked them for that opportunity. You came in with the right mind frame. But can you talk about what that culture was like to come in and be welcomed by, I mean, Ron Simmons is obviously absolute legend, JBL as well. To kind of get the okay and pat on the back from guys like that at that time?
We had to earn it. They wasn't just going to give it to you. Sure, we got our behinds beat, but at the same token, it was worth it. We earned the respect of the locker room after going through APA first. They were very physical with us, and we also felt that after going, a few rounds with APA, that once we were done with that storyline, Nobody can mess with us. If we could take the beating and the brutality that they gave us and be able to go, okay, we're still here, we're surviving, we're walking, then guess what? Can't nobody mess with us. You can't get any badder during that time than John and Ron. They were two of the baddest guys in the company at that time. They were Vince's hitman. They really was. If you did something wrong, you were thrown right to APA.
Yeah, they're almost I guess like the tag team version of what the Undertaker meant to the locker room. It feels like at that time where they were the standard of everything and let's say judge, jury, and executioner. That's what they say about the Undertaker. But they kept everything in line, right? So you guys come in and it's a time where there's a lot of really great young talent. The Hardys are coming up, Edge and Christian. And you guys ended up having some of the most legendary, one of the most legendary feuds in all of professional wrestling, whether you're talking singles or not. But Royal Rumble 2000 comes around, and you guys have the opportunity to have the first tag team tables match against the Hardys. What was that experience like for you guys to be put into that spot?
Well, we were happy because they had just did a ladder match. We were kind of envious at the time when that match went place. It was in Cleveland, Ohio at the Gund Arena. I'm not sure what the arena is called, something different now, but back then it was called the Gund Arena. And we were kind of a little envious because at that point in time, Vince still had us stuttering. He didn't take us seriously. We had evolved so much from the days of Bubba stuttering and this and that. And it was one of those things where if Vince liked it, then guess what? It was just gonna happen.
Yeah.
And it did. We wanted Vince to let the Dudleys be the Dudleys. And we knew that if he did that, we'd be on fire. And that Royal Rumble match set the stage for all of that. And so with that being said, it was because of that match, I think, that he let us, that we had the success that we had because he let us be us. And we were able to show the world exactly what we were all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that really starts the steam rolling, right? So then you get into, that moves on to WrestleMania 2000. In my opinion, that was the match of the card. Easily. That was the first tag team ladder match, 3-way. That's where we now incorporate Edge and Christian into the mix. And this is what really sparked history, right? So you guys have an unbelievable match. There's incredible footage that you see, and you can find it online of how proud you guys were of the effort that you put in coming back afterwards. But to get out there and do it on the biggest stage, to do it at WrestleMania, when only a couple of years before, you guys were doing the ECW arena and the Hammerstein Ballroom and some of those other smaller venues, to get out there and be on the biggest stage. And I remember that WrestleMania too. I mean, that was like they did like all day broadcasting of all kinds of events and stuff. They really made a big thing about it being the new millennium. But WrestleMania 2000, tell us about that experience.
Well, it was my first WrestleMania. It was a far change from being at home watching it on pay-per-view. Now I'm actually in the arena at the event, and I'm a part of it. And I have a chance to steal the show and make history.
Yeah, and you guys did too. Incredible. When you talk about the spot with Jeff Hardy jumping off the top of the ladder and all different things, you guys really all put a lot of stress and onto your bodies to put on an absolute classic that I think is one of the standards now that people go back and watch. And then this steamrolls into the first official TLC match at SummerSlam. We have SummerSlam coming up. So it's always good to get a little bit of a SummerSlam story here. You guys have the first TLC match, which obviously became synonymous because of, Edge and Christian with the chairs, the Hardys with the ladders, you guys with the tables. Whose idea was TLC? And again, talk about what that moment was like on that stage. Again, making history with a first.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was Vince's idea. Bubba likes to take the credit for coming up with the name TLC. I had never heard that until I heard him do an interview a few weeks ago where he said he was thinking to himself, TLC. Ah, that's stupid. It's tender loving care. And then he put it together and he said it was tables, ladders, and chairs. That's the first I've ever heard of that. So I didn't know. And but it was like I said before, it was great. You're actually now in a match with some of the greats, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Big Show, Triple H, Kurt Angle, Jericho. The list goes on and on. And now, you have a match at WrestleMania. Not everybody makes the card back then during WrestleMania. Some people got to sit and watch. And, we were doing so well leading up to WrestleMania that we proved to Vince that we deserved that shot. And we knew that if we would have failed, it would have been over. You have never seen the rivalry between the Hardys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudleys. Because Bubba likes to say it best, he threw shit against the wall to see if it sticked when he came with tag teams during that era. And he's right. It stuck, and Vince just went off from there. Went off to the races.
No, it's true. And at times I feel like even after you guys, that's kind of what we saw again. I said earlier, for a while the tag team division up until, a couple more recent years seemed like it was more to advance single storylines because they didn't necessarily know what to do with it. But again, it's made a huge turn. WrestleMania 17 is something that I think a lot of people wanted to hear about. Again, this is TLC 2. And, I think this one of all of them was probably the most probably talked about in terms of you had this unbelievable spot at the end between Jeff Hardy and Edge off of the top of the ladder. And it really felt like this was the most maybe brutal of the matches. You guys, and this is, this is WrestleMania 17 is arguably considered the greatest WrestleMania of all time, top to bottom. And you guys are in the conversation with Austin and Rock, and with, you had, I think it was Triple H and Undertaker for the first time on that card. Mm-hmm. You guys are in the conversation of possibly the best match on that card. What is that like to go back and watch that match, knowing it's your second Mania? This is the trilogy match, essentially. What was that like? What is that like for you?
We didn't know how special that moment was when all of this was going on. We really didn't. Even though we had the success that we had, we were doing what we were doing, we really didn't know how big things were. Because, again, it was only until we won, Tag Team of the Year, we basically stole the show at WrestleMania against all those great names that I mentioned. I mean, that's a feat in itself right there. We didn't know how special this really was until, it was constantly over and over again. You guys did great. Damn, we love watching you guys. You guys, just putting us over the top with compliments. And that was when I kind of figured, okay, after about, I'd say 4 or 5 months after that, that's when I figured, I said, okay, we got something special here. And we went off to the races from there. I'm very happy and very proud of my career and what I've done in the 33 years that I've been doing this. And I count, when I say 33, because I also count the 7 years that I had been a producer, for the company. It opened my eyes. It made me look at things a lot different than how I viewed putting together matches and things like that. So it was something that I was very happy and very proud of during that moment. We will always go down as one of the greatest rivalries in WWE history. Not one, not 2 teams, but 3 teams. We made it special.
Yeah, it really was special. And I do want to get into some TNA here, but first I have to ask you about this.
Okay.
You got that spot with Edge and Jeff Hardy at the end of that match is one of the, I mean, it is, they've made bobbleheads for it. It is one of the craziest things we've ever seen. What was the fear like at that time? You know, you had essentially a ringside view of one of the most iconic moments in wrestling history. Was there a fear after that? Because I know Edge talks about, you know, he came down. It looked so perfect, but Edge talks about coming down and basically knocking himself out loopy for a couple minutes. You know, being in there for that specific moment, what was that like?
You mean in terms? Wait, repeat
That
that.
final at WrestleMania 17, that spot at the end of the match where Jeff Hardy's hanging from the belts.
All right.
And Edge hits him with a spear. You kind of had a ringside. I mean, that is considered one of the most iconic visuals in WrestleMania history, and you had a ringside view for that. Was there like a fear for these guys after that happened? Like, what was that like to be in there firsthand and see something like that, and maybe how you felt about it after?
When you say fear, like what type of fear? I mean, once the spear happened off the ladder, and both were moving and breathing, we knew, okay, we're good. There was no fear after that. Just like when me and Jeff were hanging, I'm scared to death of heights. And it was like the minute I let go, I fell. It was like everybody was waiting for me to move. And when I moved, everybody's like, okay, he's okay.
Yeah.
Once, that's like a wrestler's code. Once the person's still moving after something, after a devastating move like that, once he starts moving, then he's good.
Oh wow, yeah, it's true, and again, one of the most iconic and scary moments. But I mean, again, that is a match. If I would put that in a top 5 match for everybody. If somebody said, "Give me 5 WrestleMania matches to go back," that's up right up there in that top 5. But you guys, you have an unbelievable time there. Eventually, you guys get split up. You get back together. You guys decide it's time to amicably move on, and you end up in TNA. And you guys had some really great runs there with the TNA tag team titles, IWGP tag team titles at that time. But I think one of the things that I have had so many conversations about, Devon, that I think is so underrated is the Aces and Eights faction and how incredible that storyline was, the way it was done, the shock value of it. I mean, it was, when people would talk about the NWO, I put this right up there. And at that time in TNA, and you were there during the AJ Styles and Kurt Angles and Stings. I mean, what a time to be in TNA. But you guys have this group. It's Aces and Eights. It's masked. It seems almost like a biker gang. And then they come in.
I don't mean to stop you. I don't want to, because I will forget. But during the times that I've went from ECW to WWE to TNA, then back to WWE again, the great thing about that is I always felt biblically wise that God had me and that he brought me in at the right place at the right time. And I'll just say this. Think of ECW when I got there in 96. April 13th, 1996, Lost Battalion Hall in Queens.
Mm-hmm.
I got there. ECW is just starting to really blow up and make a name for himself. Boom, I got put right into the mix. We have a huge successful career. Now, all of a sudden, it's starting to die for us. Not die, but it's starting, everything goes up, got to come down.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it goes back and forth. And at that point in time, at the height of our career in ECW, the company started to have financial problems. They started to basically go into a little bit of a downward spiral. And eventually they wound up closing down, but it was like God left, took us out of ECW and put us right in the Attitude Era. And we got there with the Attitude Era already starting up like 2 years prior before we got there. Now we're not just at the beginning of the Attitude Era, we're like right in the mix. So you're either going to sink or swim. And it was almost like God was like, all right, I'm taking you out of ECW. I'm going to put you in WWE. Here we go. And we just strived. We became legend. We became I don't want to say gods, but we just became, just this bigger than life character.
I would say in wrestling terms, that's you're as close to gods in wrestling terms as you could possibly get at that time.
In terms of tag team wrestling.
Correct.
But now, it's time to rebuild. We go from the Attitude Era to the Ruthless Aggression Era, which you start to see the decline because now the Attitude Era guys are starting to leave. You got the John Cena, Batista era starting to come in, and now they have to find their niche and get themselves started and get to where we once was. We're there for the Ruthless Aggression era, and then all of a sudden, towards the end of that, now it's time for the rebuilding phase of WWE, where now the Attitude Era guys are completely almost gone, and now we're going with that new era. And I like to say it was the John Cena, Batista era, because then you have your Bret and Shawn era, your Hogan and Andre era, your Dusty and Flair era. Well, now, to me, it was like God was like, okay, I'm going to take you out of here. I'm going to bring you to TNA. And we helped put TNA tag team division on the map. And we just blew up from there. Now, in my opinion, and I'm sure some people will agree, whether you work for the company or you were a fan, that it was the office behind the scenes that pretty much ruined that and the decision making that was being done during that time by the higher ups. I think, and this is my opinion, and I love her to death. I love Dixie Carter to death. So if she hears this, this is not a knock on you or anything like that. I'm just telling you how I felt. I think in terms of leaving Jeff Jarrett as the wrestling mind behind it, because at that time, you really didn't have anybody coming in there helping TNA to develop, but TNA got on the map because of Jeff Jarrett. He had some personal issues, with him and Kurt and Karen and all of that. That was exposed and all of that. And it was kind of like it was taken away from him. And then Dixie got into it. And Dixie really didn't know anything about wrestling in terms of like running a company like that. And there were times I would hear she would have her input in some of the decision making and all of that when it should have been Wrestling Minds that was doing that. And then, it was kind of like, okay, what's going to happen now with this company? Are we going to start going down? And we did a little bit. And then all of a sudden, here comes Bischoff and Hogan. They come in and they do what they do. And Eric Bischoff was responsible for the Aces and Eights. He loved the movie. He loved the TV show Sons of Anarchy, and he wanted to bring it to life in pro wrestling. That's exactly what he did. And it was a huge success. I never really watched Sons of Anarchy until they told me I was going to be in the Aces and Eights. I wanted to know how the biker life was because I didn't know anything about it. It's almost like, when you get an actor who wants to study a character that they're going to portray. And it might be like, say, for instance, Denzel Washington. And I always use this. Denzel Washington doing the movie Malcolm X. He really went in depth into learning about Malcolm, and how Malcolm portrayed himself during his time and made that movie a huge success. Correct me if I'm wrong. Heath Slater. No, not Heath Slater. Heath Ledger. The guy who did the Joker from Batman.
The Joker, yep.
He went into a place they said that they didn't even think he could go into to learn that character. And look at what he did for that character. It was like everybody in Aces and Eights had their own, way about bikers' life and how, it should be portrayed with Eric Bischoff's help. And it became a huge success. I agree. It never got the notoriety that it should have gotten because it was so good storyline wise. And then a gentleman, and I hate to say it, but a gentleman by the name of Big, who was Kevin Dunn's good friend in WWE, Kevin Dunn being executive producer at the time for WWE during the Vince era. They brought Big in, and Big was almost, as kind of like the guy in charge that made the decisions. Him and Eric butted heads, and Eric saw Aces and Eights going one way, Big saw it another way. Listen, you did not create Aces and Eights. Leave it to the man that created it. Let him do what he does best. His track record spoke for itself. He did the NWO. It worked. Yes. And Eric says this all the time. He goes, his head got a little big. He had to kind of like, get a little slap on the back of the ass to say, hey, I let my head get big and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I lost something that was doing so well because of some of the decision making I did. He learned and he was trying to capitalize that with the Aces and Eights. And it was working. And then Big came in and Dixie believed in Big more than Eric at that time. And it was taken away from him. And then Aces and Eights went downhill.
Yeah, yeah, and it was a shame too because again, like you talk about from that 2012, and that turn by Bubba, where obviously you were the first unmasked member of it, and it just kind of led to what looked like dissension amongst you guys. I mean, that evolved your guys' characters not just as a tag team but as individuals so much. Took you guys to another level, and I mean, you had Ken Anderson, Briscoe and Bischoff. Doc Gallows was. I mean, it was a hell of a group.
AJ Styles even joined later on.
AJ, yep, and I mean, speaking of AJ and you, want to be mindful of our time. I just want to obviously dive into Slammiversary. We had some big news. First of all, you mentioned AJ, his first trip back to TNA, which was unbelievable to get to see. But yeah, we had a little bit of some shocking news this weekend, Devon. It seems like we're going to get one last time a run back for one of the greatest tag team rivalries of all time, as Bubba Ray came out to confront the Hardys on behalf of Team 3D, the Dudley boys, to challenge them for Bound for Glory. So, what are your thoughts on this, buddy?
Well, I heard about that, and Bubba never came to me and asked me about doing one more run. So this was like a complete shock to me. But I'm gonna have to say that that's not going to happen. I'm not gonna. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Oh
Let me
my God! I
stop.
was like, wait a minute, what?
No, because I know the dirt sheet riders would have a ball with that. No,
Oh,
I'm joking. Yes, this will be my last time, and I know a lot of people say, yeah, yeah, yeah. All wrestlers say it's gonna be their last time, but no, this truly will be my last time, and hopefully the dirt sheet riders will write what I'm saying so the word will get out there. Did I have a stroke back in 2019? Yes, it was stress related. It was stress related. It had nothing to do with anything else. Was there some lingering effects from it? There was a little bit. Went to rehab, got rid of all of it. Got cleared. No signs of a stroke anywhere near in my body. I mean, a stroke will never go away, but in terms of you can, when the doctors can, when they take tests, they can still see that there was one. But as far as entering my body again, as long as I take care of myself, no. I eat right, I train, I do everything I'm supposed to do. The stroke is not an effect of what I'm going to be doing at all at Bound for Glory. The back surgery, I remember I spoke to Randy Orton because I had heard Randy Orton had the same back surgery that I had. And I know Randy said, Devon, if I take any bumps in the ring now, it's very, very little. I don't do the old Randy anymore. I don't take those risks because of what I have in my back. And that's the same thing here. I'm gonna go in that match and I'm gonna be Devon, but I'm gonna be smart about it. Is there any problems with me being able to have one more match? No, there isn't. So all you guys that are sitting there saying this, stop. I would not put myself in jeopardy if I thought otherwise. I have 3 little kids that I want to be able to, number one, I have 2 daughters that one day I want to be able to walk down the aisle with them if that day ever comes, which God, I hope it doesn't. But, and my son, I want to be able to play basketball with him. And I'm going to be able to do all of that. But I'm going to go into this match being smart. Again, is there any problems with the back surgery? No, I've been doing DDP yoga, which I swear by, and I've been going on countless interviews and talking about it. What Dallas did for Butterbean, Jake the Snake Roberts, Scott Hall, God rest his soul, and everybody else, even Kevin Nash, who wasn't as bad as some of those other guys, but he even testifies about DDP yoga. And the guy who jumped out of planes that DDP first started putting out there that could barely walk, he couldn't even walk. And how now he's running and doing marathons and things like that. So DDP yoga has helped me tremendously. So stop with the Devon can't work or what have you. I can work. am I gonna be out of my mind doing crazy stuff? Like hanging with Jeff Hardy again? No. Even before the surgery, I said that would never happen again. I said Jeff Hardy scared the hell out of me that day, that night. But again, I'm perfectly fine. I would not be putting myself in jeopardy if I thought otherwise. So please stop the assuming that I can't go. Can I go? Yes. Again, am I older? Absolutely. But can I still do it? I have a wrestling school in Winter Park, uh, right down the block from the PC Center. I mean, 2 to 3 minutes down the block. I still get in the ring. I train. I do the things what I have to do with the students. So again, I know what I feel and I know how I feel. So please stop thinking that Devon can't walk anymore. I'm working fine. I'm in the gym 5, 6 days a week working out, and this was before the announcement of us coming out and wanting to do one more match. But like Michael Jackson said, in Los Angeles right before he passed away, when he did that press conference, this is it. This is it for Devon. This will be the last match. This is my send off. This is the way I would like to go out. You know, and again, God forbid, nothing happens and everything is good, because anything can happen when you're doing pro wrestling. And if something was, God forbid, oh, well, Devon shouldn't have been there. No, stop. Devon shouldn't have been. That's your opinion. Let me be me. No one is telling you how to live your life. Let me live mine. If this is the way I want to go out, then this is the way I'm going to go out. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, again, I'm fine. Everything is good. I'm going to do what I have to do. And that's it. I'm going to take my time. We're going to do this smart. The Hardys and the Dudleys one more time. I'm excited about it to get in there. And I did tell Matt, I said, keep Jeff away from me. I said,
It's-
that crazy SOB man. I was like, he'll kill me. I said, keep away from me. Jeff goes, come on, Devon. I go, Jeff. I go, you hurt me. No, but I love those guys tremendously. I love Jeff Hardy. Him and I, we do so many, we have so many autograph signings together and everything. So we do extremely well. I named my son, my third son, after Matt, you know, um, and that's how close we are as individuals. It's like we're brothers without being brothers. Again, wink, wink, Bubba and Devon. And it's funny because I still get asked that question every day. Are you guys brothers? Are you guys really brothers? I'm like, oh yes, same mother, different father.
I love it. Still
uh,
riding the gimmick, right?
Still to this day, man, you never stop. But again, I'm happy. I'm making money. That's another thing too. So many different things going on right now in terms of the Attitude Era. I'm going to say a little bit of the Attitude Era, but definitely the Hogan and Andre era. When you were done wrestling, you were done. You didn't make no money. You had to go out there and get another 9 to 5 job or what have you. The great thing about it is there's so much things with social media that you do online. The Legends deal now that they have, that me and Bubba have with the WWE, the Comic Cons, the wrestling cons, all of this stuff. There's so many different ways now to make money without having to get in the ring. And I've been blessed by God to be able to do that. So, I'm enjoying life. I got my detailing business in West Palm Beach, um, Wellington, Florida. 3D Auto Detailing. You can, check us out on Instagram. Again, 3D underscore, detailing. And also, the wrestling school at Devon Dudley on Instagram as well. Check us out. And of course, my YouTube channel, making money from there too, sponsorships and everything. So, YouTube channel, just, click on to, Devon Dudley, check out the videos, check out everything that we do. We got some exciting videos coming up going into SummerSlam weekend. We got a lot of interviews coming and this and that. And even my story on how I broke into the business and with the legendary Hall of Famer himself, Johnny Rods.
Amazing, amazing. And well, you covered the last night. I was just going to ask you where we can find all your plays. You already covered that, but so we're going to end it. We're going to end this for you on this. We're going to let you drop off. Congratulations on an amazing career.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the contributions that you have made, that you continue to make, and you are 100% right, Devon. You have the right to go out as long as you're comfortable health-wise. You have every right to go out the way you want to, and I am very excited, and a lot of people are very excited to see Team 3D, the Dudleys versus the Hardys one last time, and we wish you happy health, success, and have a great rest of your summer, brother.
Thank you. And I'll say this one more time before I leave. My health is fine. Stop looking at that. People go through some trials and tribulations. It's what God brings you out of that you become whole again. And I'm whole again. Through the grace of God, I am good.
Love that. I love that, brother. And again, thank you so much for your time today. We are very appreciative, and we wish you luck.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Take care, buddy.
Bye-bye.
So there you guys have it. Awesome time with an absolute legend there, Devon Dudley. We appreciate his time today. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you check out all of his social medias he put out there. And as well, listen, right here. We want to make sure that you guys check it out. This is one last time. Devon Dudley, Bubba Ray Dudley. They're going to get out there with the Hardys for one more match, one final time at Bound for Glory. We wish Devon all the success in the world. And again, thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. We had a wonderful interview, and we got a lot more coming up. I'm going to be taking next week off. I'm going to Florida, where he's at, in the Kissimmee area. So I'll be off for a week, but we'll be coming back after with a SummerSlam recap show. So for myself, for Devon, for everybody at A2D Radio, and obviously our sponsor, SpecializedPhysicalTherapy.com, we appreciate you guys. Wish you lots of love, happiness. Tell somebody you love them. And you guys have a wonderful, wonderful